It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Tuesday, technically my Monday, but excited to be with you coming out of the weekend. Hope everyone had a good Monday yesterday. Diving right into it. Look, Mike Brown, owner of the Bengals, against Shamar Stewart, the number 17 overall, the 17th overall pick for the Bengals in the first round of the NFL draft this just past April. Who's going to win this battle? Mike Brown doesn't say a whole lot. In fact, there's not a whole lot of times where Mike Brown is actually opening up and talking to the media, but this is about that time. If you guys remember a year ago at this time, Mike Brown was telling the media that they were going to do everything in their power to get a deal done with Jamar Chase, and they would go on throughout camp and not get a deal done with Jamar Chase. And it led to him sitting out pretty much the majority, if not all, of camp. And, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where there just always seems to be, T. Higgins wanting a trade last year, Trey Hendrickson wanting a trade last year. Always noise. There's always something chaotic going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is just one of those stories that now with Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, now add Shamar Stewart into the mix. Luckily, they were able to get the linebacker situation figured out with their second overall pick. We'll talk more about that coming up in a moment. But Mike Brown addressing the media. Mike Brown was asked about the handling of Shamar Stewart, and I have to tell you, I've been sitting here for a while bashing the Bengals front office, saying that they are mishandling this entire situation. But the more and more you read into what is exactly leading to the Cincinnati Bengals and Shamar Stewart, both sides, kind of being separated on a deal, I'm not really sure whose fault it is. I think the Cincinnati Bengals sit here in a position where if they were actually organized and they actually ran like a modern franchise, it would be easier to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to give them the benefit of the doubt when they constantly find themselves in this situation where they have so many players who are just constantly not happy. But then I hear what Shamar Stewart is like. When I hear about the hill that he's willing to die on for this, it just seems kind of silly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being a little bit too simplistic with this, but it sounds like Shamar Stewart wants guaranteed money. Okay, that's fine. He wants his guaranteed money to be guaranteed. It's guaranteed no matter what. He wants money to be guaranteed no matter what. Even if he gets arrested for domestic violence, he wants his money to be guaranteed. Now, he never says this. He doesn't bring up the domestic violence. He doesn't bring up any kind of assault or anything like that. But in theory, that's what the Bengals front office is discussing and talking about, saying, hey, if this guy screws up off the field, why do I have to give him his fully guaranteed money? I want a football player that's fully guaranteed to give me production out on the field, be available out on the field. But he doesn't want to guarantee me that he can't. I kind of see both sides to this equation just a little bit. Here's Mike Brown when asked about his thoughts on the battle between him and Shamar Stewart and his agent.
Well, if we get a player who gets involved in something like that or does something that is just unacceptable, guess what? I don't want to pay him. I really don't. If he's sitting in jail, I don't think I ought to be paying him. And so we say that if he got involved in conduct detrimental, we'd have the right to terminate the guaranteed part for the back years. He says, or his agent says, oh no, you can terminate the guaranteed part only for the remaining part of the year in which the event occurs.
So that was Mike Brown yesterday addressing the media. And of course, all anyone wanted to talk about was, of course, Shamar Stewart and his hold in, whatever. He's the only first rounder to yet to sign a contract. And I've been bashing the Bengals handling this from the very beginning because I'm just rolling my eyes and I'm just like, it's just another messy situation. I think Mike Brown I think the game has passed him by. I don't think he knows what the hell he's doing half the dang time. I think he's very fortunate to have Joe Burrow. He's fortunate to have a Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. As I've stated before, they didn't get those special players because of the mystique of Mike Brown. Well, technically they did. Him being a bad owner and always putting a bad team out on the field put them in position to land those good players in the draft, and that's ultimately what has put them in this position where, well, they have to pay these guys. And they ultimately pay them. They just don't do it in a timely way, and they end up doing it so silly that they end up costing themselves even more money. The whole idea of this is to save them money. They end up spending way more money in the long run because of their cheapness, if you will. We'll get to that coming up in a moment. But I am curious. I disagree with Mike Brown on a lot of stuff, but I kind of understand where he's coming from. Shamar Stewart and his agent are, they're not saying, hey, we want our fully guaranteed money, even if I become a bust of a first-round draft pick. I had 5 sacks in 3 years in college. 5 sacks in 3 years. Basically I look like Tarzan, but I play like Jane. That's basically the Shamar Stewart story. That's why everyone was really kind of questioning his draft stock, because he has the build. He has all of the measurables. He has all of the physical abilities and just the visuals of that of a Myles Garrett, but he does not even come close to producing like a Myles Garrett. And that's the problem. But the Bengals go ahead and take him at number 17 overall with the first round. And everyone's like, man, he looks just like a freak athlete. But what they're saying is that, the Shamar Stewart and his agent, it's not like they're coming out and saying, look, we want our money guaranteed, even if we don't get a sack in his career, even if he doesn't produce, if he becomes a bust, we want our money. Okay, that's understandable. Okay, fine. But that's not where the holdup is. The holdup is that the writing in the contract states that if there is a domestic violence dispute, if you're arrested, if you find yourself in jail, if you find yourself not conducting yourself accordingly to the policy of the team and the league, Mike Brown basically just said it in that quote. If you're in jail and you can't do your job, why am I still paying you? Well, Mike Brown, because it's fully guaranteed money. This is where I'm with Shamar Stewart. But then I'm on Mike Brown's side because I also agree with him when he says, if you're in jail, why am I paying you again? I am very 50-50. I'm down the middle on this. I think Mike Brown is constantly haggling and constantly trying to find ways to get out of having to pay money to anything and anybody, to the point where it's at the detriment of the team and himself, because he ends up spending way more money in the long run because of his stubbornness. However, as we sit here today, I agree with him. If you get arrested, why am I having to, and by the way, not just getting arrested, you could be arrested, be let go, found not guilty of something. So I don't want it to be as simple as, well, if you're arrested, we don't have to pay you guaranteed money. But if you are found guilty of like a legitimate charge, I understand why NFL owners, why Mike Brown himself, why any sports owners, why any business owner would want to get out of having to pay you your guaranteed contractual money. However, though, we can't sit there. Can it really be called guaranteed money if it's not fully guaranteed? Right? Like, I think at the end of the day, this is where I'm on the player's side. However, Shamar Stewart, it's being spun. Okay. It's being spun into Shamar Stewart wanting to be allowed to get away with domestic violence or be able to get away with being arrested. That's at no point was that brought up. Mike Brown's catching a lot of heat because he is sitting here spinning it into that. People are trying to say, man, Shamar Stewart, he wants to be reckless off the field. And that's what he wants put into his contract. He doesn't want to be held accountable. But again, go back to the term guaranteed. How can something be guaranteed if it's conditional? You can't have a conditional guaranteed contract. This money is all yours if you do this. At that point, it's not guaranteed. But at the same time, it's like, well, why can't the player confidently say, yeah, I'm not going to be a piece of crap off the field? I've never been so in the middle on something. I also find it, just typical Bengals. Like if this was any other organization, if the Kansas City Chiefs were handling this situation right now, I wouldn't even come close to questioning the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just because it's the Bengals. And it's not because I'm a hater. It's just because everything they seem to touch contractually always has to be drama. Whether it was Carson Palmer, right? Whether it was Whitworth, going back in the day, there's just always something. Well, they always pay they pay their guys, but they have to make their guys feel like pieces of crap before they finally get to it. Jamar Chase should have never had to question whether the organization valued him. T. Higgins should have never had to question whether the organization valued him. Runner-up to Defensive Player of the Year, Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader last season, one of the top sack leaders the last 2 years combined, has above and beyond performed his contract. And he's questioning if the Bengals truly value him. Why do these players constantly have to feel like their organization doesn't value them? And don't say it's like that with every team. Not to this extent. Not to when it comes to this many. We're talking in one calendar year. They had a disgruntled Jamar Chase, a disgruntled T. Higgins, a disgruntled Trey Hendrickson, and now a disgruntled first-round rookie draft pick who has yet to even technically play a single down for these individuals, and he's combating them. It can't always just be the players. Carson Palmer, I don't like him because he talked bad about my team. Maybe he was right. Maybe Whitworth was right. All right, maybe Shamar Stewart and his agent, they're on to something. I mean, it's wild at the end of the day how all of this is kind of shaken out one way or another. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Head to Facebook. Everyone has Facebook. The Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Like, follow along there. You can watch it. ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. We're live on there as well. Here's what I need from you. 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. Mike Brown or Shamar Stewart, who's in the wrong? Mike Brown wants to give Shamar Stewart a portion of his salary and is guaranteed money, but only if he doesn't do X, Y, and Z. Well, now I'm on Shamar Stewart's side because how can you call it guaranteed money if you're putting provisions on it? Therefore, it's not fully guaranteed. Fully guaranteed is fully guaranteed. But then I go back to Mike Brown's side. Why should I have to pay him if he's in jail? Then I'm like, well, I kind of see that too. But then I'm back to Shamar Stewart's side because you can't call it guaranteed if you're putting restrictions on it. It's not guaranteed at that point. Guaranteed is guaranteed. Whether I'm a bust, whether I get injured, yes, even if I get arrested and make boneheaded decisions, that money is my money. It's fully guaranteed money. It's not conditional. I see both sides. What about you? 937-518-1410. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers next. All right, everybody, we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show here on a Tuesday. The show brought to you, of course, by our friends over at Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Mike Brown versus Shamar Stewart. Who's going to come out on top? Whose side are you on? I'm very conflicted on this. I'm on both sides a little bit. I understand both sides at the end of the day, and I feel bad because people are trying to look at Shamar Stewart and twist his stance on this into almost making it sound like Shamar Stewart is saying, I want to be able to commit crimes and still get my guaranteed money. And then I hear Mike Brown, and Mike Brown brings up good points, basically saying, I feel like I should not have to pay someone money who's sitting in jail. And I get that point as well. But then I go back to Shamar Stewart's side because at the same time, well, how could it be guaranteed money if there's provisions on it? This money is 100% fully guaranteed money unless doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense. Shamar Stewart's not asking to be able to break the law and still get paid. What he's saying is it's guaranteed money. You can't put restrictions on guaranteed money. I'm not going to go commit crimes. I think that the biggest crime that he's going to commit is just he's going to steal money from the Bengals because I don't think he's going to be that good. And I think the Bengals are looking for reasons not to give him fully guaranteed money because I think that they screwed up. I think that they're basically admitting that, yeah, we probably made a mistake taking Shamar Stewart with our first-round pick. With par for the course when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and making lousy decisions when it comes to the NFL draft. That was always the big knock on them, especially heading into the draft. All your money goes to the offensive side of the ball, which increases the urgency of having to hit in the draft on the defensive side of the ball when you refuse to spend money on that side of the ball. And then one of the few stars in the league that you're fortunate to have on your side of the ball, you don't even want to pay him to begin with. He didn't even show up to the first day camp. Talking about Trey Hendrickson, of course. Whose side are you on? Who is right? Who is wrong? Is this a simple case of, well, there's a little right on both sides and there's a little wrong on both sides? I think no matter how you look it up, there's only one wrong side here. I've been in the middle. I've been trying to talk myself into one side or the other. But what I can't get off of, what I cannot wrap my mind around is how can you call it fully guaranteed money if it's not fully guaranteed? If there is a provision in there, if there is any kind of clause that prevents you from getting that money, then it is not guaranteed money. Therefore, Mike Brown is wrong. Therefore, the Bengals front office catches another L, and we're not even into September yet. Therefore, I think Shamar Stewart was a bad pick. I don't think he's going to be a very good player. I'm not a Shamar Stewart fan, but I think he's in the right. He's not saying he wants to break the law and still get paid. He's saying that there shouldn't be any provisions in there preventing him from getting paid no matter what happens. If he gets in a car wreck and can no longer walk and compete moving forward, that money's his. If he is, he surrounds himself with the wrong people and finds himself in a situation where he gets arrested, technically, anyone with the brain knows fully guaranteed money should be fully guaranteed. But again, they're putting their, self-righteous hats on, and they're saying, well, this guy's a bum. He wants to break the law. He wants to commit domestic violence and still get paid by this. No, he's not saying that at all. I've heard that all damn day today. You guys sound like fools. He's not saying he wants to be able to break the law. He's just saying it's guaranteed money. I'm not signing anything that has any kind of restrictive language in there that says this fully guaranteed money is yours unless it's not fully guaranteed. 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. Let's go to the phone lines. We got our friend AJ waiting for us. AJ, appreciate you holding, man. You're on live.
Hey, Justin. You can get into the legalities of the provisions of the contract. I'm sure there's so many nuances. People are making it so binary. If it's like, oh, he's going to commit crime or he's not going to commit crime. Really, what it comes down to, I can see both sides of the story, and you made the point just before I came on. Both are. It's a gray area, but ultimately, I think this is on the Bengals and Mike Brown for drafting a player that they had trepidation about.
Okay.
A number one pick is such a valuable asset, and then just to be so reckless with it, it's kind of par for the course for the Bengals.
It's just like they've lost that benefit of the doubt. It's like I said, and by the way, like any player could challenge this, and every player has just chosen not to. Shamar Stewart's not wrong because he's the first player to decide to fight this. Like Matthew Sense on Facebook, he messages into the show. AJ says, he goes, it is guaranteed money, though. The player doesn't need to hit a stat to get the money. The league is moving this way. Kinner, I don't need to be mansplained about this. By the way, Matthew, you're wrong. That's not guaranteed money. You can't say it's guaranteed money and then say it's only guaranteed if you do this. That's not guaranteed money. That's not. No matter how hard you try to take your team's side on this, you are wrong. That is not guaranteed money. And I know the rest of the league's doing that. And AJ, back to you. The rest of the league is wording stuff like this. And just because all the other players are lining up to accept that, it doesn't mean that he's wrong because he's the one player choosing not to. I think what's making it easy to make him the enemy here, AJ, is just because he's not he was a questionable first round draft pick to begin with, which means there's a lot of ammo out there to use against him.
Well, what I would say is after the Deshaun Watson debacle and the provisions that weren't put in there,
that
I would venture to guess that there's a lot of these guaranteed contracts that those provisions are in there. And if that's the case, who is Shamar Stewart to be put in a place to argue that when there's guys that are much more entitled than him that aren't fighting these provisions?
No, you're right. And that's what I said. If he was a more polished prospect coming out of college, I think his message would be respected more. I think people are like, dude, like you have a lot to prove. If anyone needs camp, it's you. You need to shut up and get in camp. I think that's why it's been easy to just kind of label him as the bad guy in this. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that he's not doing himself any favors. If he was, if he was Joe Burrow coming out of college trying to fight this, I would 100% understand it as far as that goes. But you also have second round guys getting fully guaranteed contracts as well. And like, if any one of those guys said, hey, this isn't fully guaranteed, if you could take it away from me, they would have every right to fight that. And I agree with anyone that would choose to do so moving forward, but we'll see what ends up happening.
I think it's going to be difficult for any player. Yeah, you can raise a stink about it, but it's going to be difficult for any player to beat the NFL on this.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see. I'm actually very entertained by it. I'm actually kind of glad the Bengals did not have a quiet, boring offseason. It makes my job a little easier as far as I'm concerned. So, but
thanks, Justin.
I appreciate JJ. Thank you. All right, 937-518-1410. Matthew Sense. He continues to say that it is fully guaranteed. He goes, yes, it is, LOL. He's laughing. He's in a good mood. Matthew Sense says, if the player goes to jail for 4 years, he deserves $18 million. It's not about what he deserves. I'm not saying it's okay to commit crimes and go to jail. It's as simple as this. Guaranteed money means it's guaranteed. There's no but in there. And the NFL is trying to put a but in there. And there should be no but in there. There are no buts, no asses, just simple, fully guaranteed money. It's as simple as that. He's not even asking for a fully guaranteed. He's just saying, of the guaranteed money that's in my contract, it's mine no matter what. You don't get to go in there and pick and choose when you can and can't give it to me. It's guaranteed for a reason. So it's not about deserving. We're not going to spin it to that. So Ryan Strong on Facebook, what up, Ryan? He's taking Mike Brown's side. He goes, I'm on Mike Brown's side for once, but it's hard to say after not giving Trey a contract and after last year drafting Burton, but drafting Shamar in the first place was very questionable. Yeah, I mean, and to repeat it again, if the Chiefs are fighting with the player about this, I'm automatically, I guess, taking that automatically, but I would be more prone to taking the Chiefs side because it's the Chiefs and they make a lot of great decisions and they just seem like they have competent people running their organization. The Bengals don't have competent people running their organization. They are a laughingstock when it comes to this. What do you mean, Justin? They've signed Jamar Chase. Yes. And they could have signed him for significantly less. And they're going to spend 20 to 30 million more moving forward, which is a whole impact player in itself, because they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what the F they're doing. Like, you guys have heard that clip before, right? Like, every time I hear that clip, of the guy that's in charge of the country when he says that about a particular group of people over there. I think they don't know what the F they're doing. That's the Cincinnati Bengals. Everything that they do, they don't know what the F they're doing. Mike Brown, well, I guess if every other NFL team puts this language in their contract, by golly, I guess we will. Well, by golly, it's not like you know what you're doing. You're just, well, I guess it's our turn. You have to be last to everything. And that's rich coming from me, who I'm late to everything, but my goodness. The Cincinnati Bengals don't deserve the benefit of the doubt on this. That's why I have no problem saying, hey, I like Mike Brown, and Mike Brown, I'll give him this. For his age, I don't think he's all that sharp, but he's playing the manipulation game here. He's playing the media here. He's trying to set Shamar Stewart up to be a bad guy here. Take a listen. Look, this is what he's trying to spin it as.
Who gets involved in something like that. Well, if we get a player who gets involved in something like that or does something that is just unacceptable, guess what? I don't want to pay him. I really don't. If he's sitting in jail, I don't think I ought to be paying him. And so we say that if he got involved in conduct detrimental, we'd have the right to terminate the guaranteed part for the back years. He says, or his agent says, oh no, you can terminate the guaranteed part only for the remaining part of the year in which the event occurs.
And that's the other thing too, when you really listen to that soundbite, the agent of Shamar Stewart's technically also saying that, hey, like, if he gets in trouble in 2025, you could void his guarantees in 2025, but why take his guarantees away from 26, 27, and 28? Mike Brown's just looking for an excuse to wipe away every guarantee of the contract. That doesn't make any sense. You guys weren't a fan of your team drafting Shamar Stewart, so you automatically don't like him. If you like the player, if the player was a fan favorite, I don't know if the guy actually produced in college, you would be more taking the player's side. You don't have a moral stance on this one way or another. You're just pretending. Stop pretending. Stop pretending. You don't like the player, so now you're just going to take the other. This is how I know he was the worst pick you could have made with pick number 17, because you guys are trying to tell me that I'm wrong and that Mike Brown is right. I'm wrong. Mike Brown is right. When even you know deep down Mike Brown's the biggest joke of an owner in the National Football League. And you're going to sit there and say he's right and I'm wrong. No. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I'm not wrong on this one. At the end of the day, anytime you try to argue that Mike Brown is right on something, that's how I know I'm right. Oh, Mike Brown's right on this. Well, I know I won that argument then. Thank you for playing along. 937-518-1410. Mike Brown was asked about his thoughts on why the media continues to label him and the organization as cheap. He says they're not cheap, and he explains why. We'll have that for you next.
StuartHold'em.com.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
Chase Burns is going to be on the mound tonight for your Cincinnati Reds. It would help if I turned the right mic on. There you go. It's Chase Burns going to be on the mound tonight for your Cincinnati Reds. Of course, Reds and Nationals coming up later on tonight. 6:45 will be the first pitch. 6:15 is when coverage begins right here on Dayton's radio, home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. We're live on 1410 Wing AM, live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Shout out to our sponsor, Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. All right, here's the deal. We're resetting the scene here. Obviously, camp officially underway. We knew the storylines that were going to be coming out of Bengals camp. We already knew the questions that were going to be asked, and we pretty much knew a lot of the answers that were going to be given. Not a whole lot. And I'm still not even really sure what answers we've received from the Bengals front office at this point, other than the fact that, well, Mike Brown is trying to paint Shamar Stewart as this horrible person that's trying to ask for guaranteed money even if he commits crimes. Basically trying to make it sound like Shamar Stewart's going to commit crimes and he still wants to get paid for it. Mike Brown saying, if I have a player in jail, I shouldn't have to pay him. Well, if they sign a fully guaranteed contract, you kind of do. And you don't have to agree to that, but you're going to find yourself in these types of situations, Mr. Brown. Mike Brown is archaic. The game has passed him by. And he has lost the benefit of the doubt in these situations. So many people are just automatically taking Mike Brown's side, which do I have to remind you that it's Mike Brown? Do I have to remind you that it's the Bengals front office, the same front office that you guys constantly bash and then somehow find a way to give credit for because they got the Jamar Chase deal done. They got it done, but in a very, very silly way. They kept T. Higgins, but in a very, very silly way. Trey Hendrickson, if they do, like I said before, I will respect Mike Brown and the Bengals if they decide to stick to their guns and not pay him, because if they truly are stupid enough to give him if they truly are stupid enough to give him the money he's asking for, they would be giving him way more than what they would have ended up giving him if they would have just done it at the beginning, which means if you are willing to pay a player, if you're willing to pay them, just do it. Because the only thing that stretching it out does is cost you more money, which is something that you always say you don't have or struggle to put up or whatever. I don't get it. He's a joke of an owner. He's a joke of an owner. And you guys are saying, I'm taking Mike Brown's side because I don't like that the player that they drafted, also his fault, only had 5 sacks in 3 years. So therefore, anything that this guy wants, I'm going to automatically take the opposite side. That's what you guys are doing. Because if you just use logic in this particular situation, Shamar Stewart and his agent basically just saying it's not guaranteed money if you put provisions in there. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. I had someone a little bit ago, that said, I think it was Mike Sense, bringing up the fact, trying to explain the situation at hand, saying that, yes, it is guaranteed money, and if the player goes to jail for 4 years, he deserves 18 minutes. It's not about deserving. If you get if you, whatever company you work at, if my company says, Kenner, we are giving you, here's your salary, here's your contract, this money is guaranteed. That means it's guaranteed every single penny, no matter what boneheaded decision that I would make, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, that money is mine. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Not budging on that. I'm not saying I want to go commit crimes or say something crazy or do something crazy. But guaranteed money is guaranteed money. Not, hey, Kenner, we're going to give you a fully guaranteed contract, but if you do this, it's not yours. If you do this, it's not yours. If you do this, it's not yours. If you do this, it's yours. But if you don't do this, it's not yours. Therefore, it's not guaranteed. This is, I saw Matthew Sense say this isn't that complicated or something smart ass along those lines. You're right, it's not. It's actually pretty damn simple. But because you're mad at Shamar Stewart, who's creating noise in an offseason that you can't afford noise, you're just mad at him instead of just looking at your owner who constantly has dust-ups with players because of the way he handles contracts. Yeah, Mike Brown, real winner. He's right. He's handling this perfectly. Shamar Stewart should have never been drafted to begin with, but he's not wrong in this particular situation. And I don't care that every other team in the NFL is using similar language as this. It doesn't mean that he's wrong for pointing it out. That just means there's a lot of dumb athletes in the NFL who think they're getting fully guaranteed money, but they're not getting fully guaranteed money because it's not fully guaranteed, because if you do X, Y, and Z, it's not your money. Therefore, it's not fully guaranteed. You're right, Matthew Sense. This isn't complicated. It's pretty damn simple. 937-518-1410, the number to call to jump in on the conversation. Let's go to Shaw. Shaw, you're on live. How are you?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Another day in paradise. I about said happy Monday, but it's a Tuesday. What's up?
Oh, this, like many things in this world, is stuck in the middle, and no one's right, no one's wrong, and just as fast as you think one side's right and the other side's wrong, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the Spider-Man meme looking back at each other. I don't understand why even the Bengals would even sign a said contract that says anything remotely close to guaranteed money to it. I was just going to throw that one out there right now.
Repeat that. Say that again.
I don't know why the Bengals would agree to sign any player with anything that says fully guaranteed on it. I don't understand it.
Oh, I agree with you across the board in all sports. I think I think fully guaranteed money is silly, but if you're going to offer don't say this is a fully guaranteed, or don't say that the portion that's fully guaranteed is fully guaranteed when it's not. But I'm with you on that. I think fully guaranteed money is absolutely ridiculous. And I thought that before my team did it with their quarterback. But I thought that the second that guaranteed money creeped its way into sports, we knew it was just going to be an ugly time moving forward. And it has been.
And I'm trying, I'm on the road right now, so I can't look anything up. And I guess the question I would have right now, because the first I heard of any of the Mike Brown stuff is when you played it, and I heard it when you first started the show. So all of this topic is brand new to me for the stuff that's happened today and probably yesterday. So forgive me that I'm not fully prepared to ask this question or talk about the subject, but my question, I guess, and what I would be looking up if I was at home before I would have called in, is how, like, even contracts that are remotely close to what Shamar Stewart wants. What is the wording on the contract? Is it what Shamar Stewart is saying it is, or is it closer to what Mike Brown is saying it is? Basically, what I mean by that is the contract fully guaranteed to these other rookies and other contracts like his, or is there? I understand what you're saying is if there's provisions put in these contracts that say if you do X, Y, and Z, then you're not going to get your money, and then that means it's not guaranteed. I understand that fully. I do. But on the other hand, I don't agree, and I don't understand, and I don't believe that there's an abundance of these contracts like this throughout the NFL. I don't.
So you're saying, like, for everyone that keeps just trying to chalk it up to just sign it, everyone else is signing theirs. You're saying you don't know if you agree with that or not.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
Because I hear stuff in passing. I'll hear people say, well, the Chiefs do similar contracts and every other team does similar contract. Well, similar or the same, because
right,
I'm short, somebody else is short, but we're not the same height. We're both just short. So these guys, we're similar. We're not the same. Right? I guess the same with these contracts. Are they similar? Like, what's off, what's different? If the counter to them saying, hey, if you get arrested, we don't want to pay you. And the agent is saying, well, hold on, if I get arrested in 2025 and you want to void the guarantees for that year, fine, but you're not touching the guarantees on the back end of the contract. I understand that side too. Like, right. It's like a tennis match. I'm following that ball back and forth, back and forth. The problem is every time I start to want to see it from the Mike Brown side, I'm like, but he does not deserve the benefit of the doubt because they never handled these situations correctly to begin with. And I don't ever believe that Mike Brown operates in good faith. I don't think he's ever looking out for what's best for the athletes. It's all about him and his wallet, and he has every right to do that. But so does Shamar Stewart when he's looking out for himself at the end of the day.
Right. And I fully agree with everything you just said there. And about the Mike Brown stuff, I don't believe him as far as I could throw it. And I agree with you that he doesn't operate any of these contract negotiations with any thought process at all from the player's point of view at all. If you don't believe me, look at the Carson Palmer situation altogether. And there's so many others that you can bring up. But I find, like, so for instance, like all these other contracts and these free agents and the TJ Watts who just sign all these contracts, and this money is guaranteed, but it's guaranteed up to a point. And what I mean by that is the whole entire contract isn't guaranteed.
No.
So I'm not understanding why the Bengals and Shamar Stewart can't come to an agreement on a contract very similar to that. I mean, and I guarantee you it is written in TJ Watt's contract that he just literally signed last Friday that if he gets in trouble and goes to jail, guess what's not guaranteed? I'm finding it very hard and very disingenuous from Shamar Stewart and his side to sit there and want the Bengals to completely fully guarantee an entire contract when you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Then don't call it guaranteed. That's my big hang up. Don't call it guaranteed. It's not guaranteed.
I agree with that, but has Mike Brown's been saying he's trying to sign him to a fully guaranteed contract, or is that just coming from Shamar Stewart's side?
I don't even think it's about a fully guaranteed contract. I think it's just regarding to the guaranteed money in the contract. Like if it's a 18 mil, but 14 mils guaranteed, it's about that guaranteed money. It's not about the, you know what I mean? Like the
right.
But this is also slotted money. You're like, you know what you're making with this. So that's why it's like, why is the front office making this more difficult than it needs to be? They've made it easy for you. You know, the Players Association, the collective bargaining agreement, it made it easy for you. This is the contract. So you get this amount of guaranteed money. What are we doing here? Why are they playing games with all this? That's the frustrating part at the end of the day. And like I said, Mike Brown deserves no benefit of the doubt.
Well, and I agree, but on the other hand, and I agree with the thing that I read before I got put on air, when you're a fan of an organization, especially the Bengals, and you have to feel like you're on the side of Mike Brown, you already know you're messed up. But I'm trying to understand it, I guess, from the overall contract point of view, not Shamar Stewart's side, not Bengals' side. So it's slotted in, like you said, correct. And so how every other NFL team is doing this is the wording in those contracts for their first round draft picks. Is it saying that the money is fully guaranteed?
That's how I would have understood.
I'm legitimately asking. That's not a loaded question at all.
And no, it's a fair question. I mean, it's not like those contracts are just floating around to read, bullet point for bullet point. But like, let's say this too. I will say, like, the Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract, even that technically has a couple of get out of jail free cards, not for him, but maybe, when it comes to the front office and the money, because when he got injured with that Achilles injury and he was caught dancing with his, at the time, fiance on the side of the road, he was not wearing his boot. And they were saying that if the injury gets worse or it's caused due to neglect of him not adhering to personal trainers and physical therapy and everything else, that they could get out of having to pay those years. And if there was other things in there, like if new accusers came to the table, if more light was shed on some of this stuff, if he wasn't fully transparent, they didn't owe him the back money, the back half of that money. So even that, when people say it's fully guaranteed, it really wasn't fully guaranteed from that standpoint as well. But hey, Deshaun Watson agreed to it. But had he said, hey, no, nothing, no matter what happens, I don't care what happens, you cannot take a dime from me, these contracts really aren't fully guaranteed at the end of the day. But we're saying a lot of the same things over and over. But
so is Shamar Stewart just arguing and trying to stand pat on semantics then?
Maybe, but I also wouldn't trust the front office to find excuses to get out of paying. I don't trust the Bengals front office for anything.
Right, but they're
the ones that buy something at the department store and then want to return it because the box is a little banged up, even though you bought it that way. Like they're I've worked in retail, and there's some of the biggest pain in the ass people in the world that just want to complain to complain. That's the Cincinnati Bengals front office. They want to nitpick. Hey, this shirt, I like it, but there's a little bit of there's a snag on the back. Can we take a little money off that? That person stinks. I can't stand that person. That's Mike Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals here. So you know what? I want to make sure I'm covering my behind. That's Shamar Stewart at this point. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it.
So they take it to an upteenth degree more than any other NFL franchise. That I'll agree with you. But you just fully admitted that the Browns put some of the same type of language in the Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the Bengals are at the core are not doing anything different than any other organization. Now where I'll agree with you is Mike Brown always has to take it to the next step or the next step after that and just try to show that he's an arrogant, and I'll be nice. And he has to be the smartest man in every room that he walks into.
Now,
but my issue of this matter is, like, at the end of the day, we're talking about a damn rookie.
I get that, but also the previous first-round draft picks in recent years don't have that language in their contracts, and he's trying to set precedent, saying, I'm not going to be the first rookie first-round draft pick that agrees to this. I'm not going to be the guy that the future first-round draft picks say, well, what the hell? Well, you got to thank Shamar Stewart for that, and it had that's the thing. Someone was always going to be the first-round draft pick to have that put into their contract. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that they have to agree to it. You want to talk about precedent. Precedent is if you go look at their last couple first-round draft picks, they don't have that in their contracts. And he does. And that's why he's saying, hey, I'm not going to be the guinea pig, or I'm not going to be the one that sets that tone moving forward. So then there's that.
At what point, and I understand that. At what point, though, does somebody in Shamar Stewart's room try to be the levity on the other side of the argument and say, okay, look, we can meet them halfway on this. This is what we're not going to budge on. And I fully agree with you. And if I was his agent, at what point does he have to be the adult in the room? Because Elko doesn't want him back at Texas A&M. He has no other options here. What's he going to do? The Bengals are not, as much as we don't like the Bengals front office.
Why would you not want him back at college if you're the head coach there? Why would you not want him back?
That's a whole different argument, and that's time I probably don't have to talk about. That I don't understand why Elko wouldn't want him back. I don't understand why he said that. Probably because he understands the Bengals won't release him, and they understand that if it does go to court, the NFL will win, and there's no point of even putting your toe in the water to even see how that water ripples, because it's all going to come out null and void anyhow. That's my only guess as to why he would say he wouldn't want him back, because that's a first-round talent. And, yeah, I understand he didn't give you all the sacks in the world, but you can't tell me he didn't give you other types of production for that defense. And don't even come at me and tell me that you wouldn't want him on that defense, especially in week 2 or 3, whatever it is, when they play Notre Dame. So I find that very, very odd to me that he came out and said that. But on the other hand, what's he going to do? Just sit out the entire, he's just going to sit out the entire year of football then? How does that help him?
And
that's the other part of this.
Or he just doesn't want to play in Cincinnati. I don't care how cool Joe Burrow is. I don't care how cool.
If the Bengals release him, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, or this guy just knows he's a fraud, and that's why he didn't work out for a lot of teams during the pre-draft workout period. There was red flags right off the bat. The night that he got drafted, he said, I was surprised I was drafted by the Bengals. I don't even remember talking to them in the pre-draft process, even though the Bengals said they had tons of conversations with them. I mean, this whole thing has just been the most Bengals thing ever. And they deserve it, to be honest. This is what you get when you put all your eggs into a disgruntled 30-year-old pass edge rusher and, an 18 or 19, 20-year-old pass rusher who, doesn't pass rush. So
I'll end with these two things because I know you're probably up against it. I'll end with these two things. On the Trey Hendrickson thing, I don't care if it's the Bengals and Mike Brown. I will side with the Bengals in the front office on that one until the cows come home. I do not care. I don't care who disagrees with me. I do not care. He's under contract. If you thought there was a hint of you outperforming this contract, then don't sign it. That's on you that's on you and your agent and no one else. That's not the Bengals' fault that you signed this contract. I will never sign with Trey Hendrickson on that. And quite frankly, if I was the Bengals, I'd call his bluff. Go ahead, take your Instagram photos of you leaving the state. Go to California, to Milan. I don't care where you go. Just don't come back here because you're under contract and you're going to not be getting paid anyways. So I don't really care. The last point is you brought up the ultimate thing, and it's basically the cash all-in moment, the degree all-in moment. It's why were the Bengals so dumb to draft this kid in the first place, and you're not even in the middle of all this crap going on as camp starts, and you're dealing with everything else you're dealing with the Trey stuff. You're already catching the heat from the media and all this other stuff. The last thing you need going into this season is all of this nonsense. And it'll be excuses for Taylor. It'll be excuses for Burrow. It'll be excuses for everybody. Well, except for this radio show, but it'll be excuses for everybody else that, that's why we started slow. And that's why, I know they're not playing the Patriots this year, but that's why we lost to the Patriots. This year it'll be, that's why we lost to the Browns, because we weren't fully focused. This is why they're a joke. And this is why I can't stand them. I know you're up against it. I'm going to go ahead and go Blue. Talk to you later. Peace.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Last thing on this, Trey Hendrickson. I will respect the Bengals more if they stick to their guns and don't give him the extension. If they pay him $38 to $40 million, I will laugh like crazy, because you could have got him cheaper than Max Crosby. You could have got him for 30 if you would have just done this a year ago. Because if you end up paying him this year, that means you were willing to pay him a year ago. And because you weren't willing to pay him a year ago, now look, it's the same thing with Jamar Chase. If you would have signed Trey Hendrickson last year, you would have got him for 30. $5 million a year cheaper than Max Crosby, $10 million cheaper than, of course, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. If you would have signed Jamar Chase a year earlier, you would have signed him for $35 million a year instead of the $40 million a year. And you may say, well, that's only a $5 million difference. Well, over a 4-year contract, that's $20 million. $20 million, that's a whole impact player right there. They're a joke. That's why I don't take Mike Brown's side on anything, because at the end of the day, if you start to calculate it and you start to say, man, Mike Brown is so right, you're wrong at that point, because he's not. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what the blank they're doing. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Hour 2 coming up next.
Have you heard? The Staples Easy button is back with even more easy. Press it for custom prints, shipping services, even passport photos. Staples, that was easy.
Football, more football. We're getting closer to the football season. Whether it be college football or the NFL, we are excited. We're Dayton's radio home for Ohio State football. Ohio State opens up the season against Texas coming up here in the not too far off distant future, of course. So we're excited about that. The NFL getting closer and closer. In fact, coming up, what is today? Yeah, the 22nd. We are less than 10 days away from the first NFL preseason game. That's right. July 31st. Pretty excited about that. Preseason games will get underway here in the next couple of weeks. Camp's officially underway. In fact, today was a fun day. Already our first full hour into the show, and it was all about storylines coming out of Bengals camp. Keep the stories coming. Keep the drama coming. I don't want everyone singing Kumbaya, getting along and stuff. Like, come on now. We welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. All right, let's talk a little college football. Everyone remembers Indiana last year as being one of the biggest storylines in all of college football. Remember, they didn't play anybody except the one team that they did play that was good. They lost to, and then somehow made the playoffs, and then got exposed in the playoffs, right? But I'm conflicted because I do like Kirk Cinetti. I do like their head coach. I do like him, but he's back in the headlines. He looks like Tom Arnold. That's all I see. Whenever time I see Kurt Cinetti. If you don't know what Kurt Cinetti looks like, you don't know what Tom Arnold looks like, go type it. I swear that's his doppelganger. I swear they're the same person. But Indiana head coach Kurt Cinetti, he took a shot at the SEC at Big Ten Media Days today in defense of his canceled non-conference series with Virginia. He goes on to say, we figured we'd adopt an SEC scheduling philosophy. All right. I love his brass personality. I love the fact that he's willing to say what's on his mind. I love the fact that he's willing to take a shot at the SEC. But here's the thing. If you're going to take shots, you have to make sense. And this is what pisses people off about the SEC. People like to believe there's an SEC bias, and I've been adamant that that is not the case. They put more players in the NFL than any other conference. All they do is win national championships. And yes, I am very well aware that the Big Ten has won back-to-back national championships. One of those is tainted, and thank goodness Ohio State provided a real respectable one, of course. But I don't know if it takes back-to-back national championships with one of those being tainted to convince me that the Big Ten is all of a sudden better than the SEC. I'm not ready to go there yet. It is what it is. We do know that it's 1A and 1B, the SEC and the Big Ten, but it's still the SEC. Let's just stop. So constantly taking shots at the SEC. It's like WNBA players taking shots at Caitlin Clark. No matter how many shots you take at Caitlin Clark, it's not going to make you better than her. It's not going to make you more popular than her. And it's not going to really make you the reason that people care about that sport, because we all know it's Caitlin Clark. Not an opinion, not a hot take. There are literally metrics upon metrics upon metrics to back that up. Just like the battle, the talk about the SEC. No matter how many shots you take at the SEC, it does not make you better than them. It does not even make you equal. Stop taking shots. Stop making things about the SEC. Something like, you could have that competitive bone in your body that the SEC drives you nuts, but it drives you nuts because they do win, and they win a lot. They do recruit, and they pretty much recruit better outside of Ohio State, of course. But as a whole, from a recruiting standpoint, from a win standpoint, from an NFL standpoint, from a championship standpoint, the SEC is better. It's not a hot take. It's just the reality of it. I bring this up because Kirk Cinetti going and attacking the SEC, I went from being on his side to like saying, dude, come on, just stop. I applauded Indiana when they took Virginia off the schedule. There's no point. I've said this before. Indiana learned last year. You don't have to play anybody. You just need to win double-digit games. You need to don't lose more than 2 games, and you're in. When double-digit games have 2 or less losses, you're golden. And as this thing expands more, you might even be able to sneak a third loss in there. Who knows? This isn't complicated. I was pro-Indiana on this decision. Take the good teams. I can't wait for Ohio State, Texas, but I do think it's stupid to keep Texas on the schedule. You got to play Penn State. You got to play Michigan. What happens if the trifecta happens? What happens if you lose a competitive game against Texas, lose a competitive game against Penn State, and then lose another heartbreaker like last year against Michigan? You're out of the playoffs, my dude. all because you wanted to challenge yourself in the non-conference. Your schedule's it's challenging enough. You know, it may suck for us as fans in September if you play nobody in the non-conference, but you know what? What do you guys remember about last year? Do you remember the boring non-conference slate that Ohio State had, or do you remember them hoisting up the national championship? I remember them kicking Tennessee's ass in negative 10-degree weather. I remember, getting in a plane, heading over to Pasadena and watching Ohio State kick Oregon's ass in the Rose Bowl. I remember watching them, and in fact, the Scoop and Sawyer right here, I'm wearing the shirt. I remember this. Nothing that happens in Ohio State, Texas coming up here in a month, a T-shirt will not be made about that. It will not be made about that game. No nickname about a finish today. No one will care. It could be an all-time regular season classic. Still, no one's going to care. It's not about how you start. It's about how you finish, yada, yada, yada. The thing is, what are you winning by trying to show off in September? As a fan, I'm going to love the matchup. But deep down, if Texas losing to Texas ends up being one of the nails in the coffin of Ohio State accomplishing what they need to, I'm kind of pissed. Indiana's smart. Take Virginia off the schedule. You're Indiana. You're not Ohio State and some of these others. You can't afford. You have to make your path to the playoff as simple and easy as possible. You don't get to pick your Big Ten schedule. You do get to pick your non-conference schedule. And a lot of people, that's the other thing too. People get mad at the amount of conference games that the SEC schedules. They play less conference games in the Big Ten. They want them to schedule more conference games because they play less. They play more non-conference games in the Big Ten and others. And what they end up doing is they get one more give me game. They get one more gimme game than everybody else. And guess what? I've always done this analogy for years. Go back to your college days or high school days, okay? Big test coming up. The professor or your teacher comes in and says, I tell you what, this test that determines whether you pass this class or not, I know we said no notes. It's not an open book test, but you know what? Go ahead and cheat. Go ahead and get your notes out. Go ahead and get your cheat sheet out. Go ahead and use every resource possible to put you in position to succeed and pass this class. You don't have to, but you can. And now let's say those do-gooder nerds in class say, oh, no. I'm going to study. I'm going to work hard. And I'm not going to get my notes out. I'm going to work hard and pass this test without any notes and without sheet. Okay. So you're allowed to. You choose not to. That's on you. Then the grades come out. And everybody that used the notes passed with flying colors, no issues whatsoever. In fact, they got the test done so quickly because they didn't even really have to think it out. They just had to find the answer in the notes and write it down and off they go. But the do-gooder nerds had to sit there and process everything, and they had to take their time, and they made it way more difficult. And little old Susie over here, she got a C. And she's the smartest girl in the class, but this was a challenging test. But the dumb guy, let's just say his name's Kinner. Okay, let's just say the dumb kid in class, Kinner, he got to use his open notes, and he got a B. And then that person complains about Kinner. I'm here to tell you, you had the same opportunity to use your notes. You chose not to. You chose to make it more difficult. That's my philosophy on the Big Ten. You don't get to rip the SEC because you continue to play more conference games than they do. Take a conference game off, play another who the hell is that university, stack up those wins, and start to build up your perception of being the best conference in football. But you don't get to schedule harder. The results show that you're scheduling harder, and then complain because why is our life harder? Because you chose to. Because you chose to. If the professor says you can use your notes for the test and you choose not to, and you do worse on the test than the person who used their notes, you don't get to get mad at the person that used their notes to make the test easier. Be mad at yourself. Stop trying to be a hero. Big Ten, stop trying to be a hero. You've never been a hero. Remember that time during COVID, you thought you were going to be the conference that led by example? We're going to think of safety and everything and blah, blah, blah. We're going to get rid of the college football season altogether. Remember how that worked out? You got booed out of the building. All right, we'll do conference-only games. All right, well, one of our teams got to the national championship, and then karma caught you, and you got your ass kicked by Alabama. It's not that hard. So, Kurt Signetti, I love the fact that you took Virginia off your schedule. I love that you took Virginia off the schedule. But stop taking shots at the SEC. They are the better conference. There's not a bias. It's logic. Logic, bias, two different things. It's easier to make yourself feel better by saying, oh, there's just SEC bias. No, there's SEC logic. And when you use logic, they're better. But we won back-to-back national championship. That's super. I'll still take the SEC as a whole over the Big Ten. Not a hot take. I'll take the conference that puts more players in the NFL than anybody else. They just can't. I mean, the Big Ten's won back-to-back national championships. Cool. Where was that energy when the SEC won 4? I don't, Alabama, LSU, Georgia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The SEC, it is what it is. But like I said, Kurt Signetti, we figured we'd adopt an SEC schedule. And by the way, like I said, if you're going to take a shot at the SEC, you got to be right. To the SEC's credit, they may play an extra out-of-conference game, but they play tough competition in the non-conference. I mean, I pulled this list right here. Texas played 9 games against ranked opponents just last year. That included non-conference games. Texas is, I mean, look at this. To Ohio State's credit, I don't like it, but they're playing really tough schools in the coming years. Guess what conferences that's all from? The SEC's not hiding from Ohio State. Texas said when and where. Sure, we'll do it. In fact, we'll start it in Columbus. Guess what's after that? Then they're going to play Alabama in a home and away. And then they're going to play Georgia in a home and away. Do those games get played? I still don't know. But let's not act like the SEC constantly hides. Some of the biggest games every single season are in the non-con. It's always the SEC doing it. Georgia and Clemson, right? We've seen Alabama go up against anybody in the non-con. My only knock on Alabama is the fact that they do the neutral site games. I hate those. But the bottom line is, the SEC, if you're going to take shots at them, you got to be right. And you were wrong. They play tough non-conference schedules. What you get mad at is the fact that when you're having to play Penn State in November, really not Penn State, but if you're having to play Michigan State or whoever that's solid in the second or third to last week of the season, and Alabama is playing McNeese or something like that, okay, you're mad, but they're not breaking any rules. So what if they want to give themselves a non-conference bye week in the back half before rivalry week, before, a couple weeks before the conference championship game, a couple weeks before Selection Sunday? It's up to you to put yourself in position to look the best ahead of Selection Sunday. No one gets brownie points for making it harder. And that's what the Big Ten does. It's almost like a badge of honor. We make it harder on ourselves. Score. We make it harder on ourselves. Why are they better than us? I think you know that answer. As far as that's concerned. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Man, oh man. College football. Hurry up and get here, please. Please. We'll be right back. 937-518-1410. All this talk about the SEC needing to add a conference game. I'm here to tell you, I don't want the SEC to add a conference game. I want the Big Ten to take a conference game away. I want the Big Ten to take a conference game out. Oh no, it's tougher. Why? Ohio State plays Rutgers, while Alabama plays William and Mary. Oh yeah, big gap there. Big gap. Well, our bad team's better than your bad team. Yeah, what an argument. We'll be right back. on food, sports, and spirits here on a Tuesday, 4:30 here in the Miami Valley. Coming off that segment right there again, Kurt Signetti taking a shot at the SEC unprovoked for no reason. I wish Kurt Signetti would have just basically said, "The hell is that?" There we go. I don't know. Like, look, stuff just, yeah. If you're watching, I mean, look, I got distracted because there's this thing like just dangling down from the microphone stand, but that's besides the point. ADD, back, focus. Kurt Signetti takes an unprovoked shot at the SEC for doing something that I agreed with him for doing. He had a home and home scheduled for, I think, this upcoming season or the season after with Virginia. Now, Virginia is not like a Georgia or even a Clemson or, even a Notre Dame or an Ohio State, but when you're Indiana, that's going to be a competitive game. If Ohio State had Virginia on the schedule, I wouldn't even be worried about it. Indiana having Virginia on the schedule, I'd be worried about it. And when you're Indiana and you're playing the Penn States and the Michigans and the Oregons and the Ohio States, my question is, why do you need to play anybody in the non-conference at all? And that's the other thing, too. So Shaw disagreed with my take when I said there's so much pressure that the Big Ten is trying to pressure the SEC into playing more conference games. And everyone's saying it's a weak way out. As far as that's concerned, and they make such a big deal about the conference games that they play or don't play, and they almost in the Big Ten brags because we play more conference games than they do. Well, if the conference that's the best conference in college football is, if I'm not the best conference in college football and the Big Ten is not, I am going to look at the best conference in college football and say, well, what are they doing that we're not? And then I'm going to copy them. So telling the SEC, come back here with us is kind of stupid. They should be saying, hey, we're coming up there with you. We're going to drop a conference game. Now, Shaw's response to that, saying that these conferences are too damn big to be playing 8 games, to be playing 8-game conference schedules. Why does it matter? So there's two ways. There's a couple things you could do here. Get rid of non-conference games, which I'm actually a big fan of, technically. Get rid of get rid of non-conference games completely. And the Big Ten, make a Big Ten schedule from week 1 through week 12. You start the season against the Big Ten, you end the season against the Big Ten, and then you have a Big Ten championship. You still won't get to play everybody. But if these conferences keep expanding, it's just absolutely insane and stupid to crown a champion in a conference when you don't even play everybody. Right? Like at least the 1 seed in the AFC plays every team in the AFC. Every team in the NFC plays every team in the NFC. Like I don't know what you want. I mean, it is what it is. Like you're going to run into those teams as far as that's concerned. But look, at the end of the day, if I am an SEC school or if I'm the SEC, I'm not adding an extra conference game. I'm fine with playing the non-conference games that we do. I'm not going to dumb our conference down to join the Big Ten. They need to do more to catch up to us. It's as simple as that. But Sean, no, I get it. They're too big to have, to only be playing 8-game conference schedules. Well, they're too big to even be playing 9. We're arguing over between 8 and 9. You want the SEC to go from 8 to 9. Who cares? Now, we could all agree. I would argue and say, hey, they need to play all conference games. Okay. You're going to expand the Big Ten and SEC and the ACC and all these conferences to being as big as they are. They don't need non-conference games. But what about the little guys? What about the little guys? Are we really pretending? I mean, that's the thing. God, Ohio State's playing Ohio this year. This sucks. All right, well, get rid of the non-conference games. Play Big Ten only. But what about the little guy? You mean the little guy that you just said sucks? This isn't that hard. Survival of the fittest. If you need other bigger schools to prop you up, then you're not running a good business model to begin with, and you probably shouldn't be Division I to begin with. It's as simple as that. It is what it is. I mean, I don't feel bad for those schools. I just don't. It is what it is. Like I said, it's so ridiculous. We complain. Got Ohio State against Grambling State, Ohio State against Ohio. The schedule is brutal for Ohio State outside of Texas. And that's the thing, too. Ohio State plays a bunch of nobodies in the non-conference except for Texas. So you play those 3 or 4 non-conference games. You only play one good team, one legitimate team. And I'm supposed to applaud you. Good job, Ohio State. Tough non-conference schedule. You play Ohio and Grambling State. Sure, you play Texas, but you play Ohio and Grambling State. Let's not act like you're sprinkling a Virginia and a Utah in there. Still teams that you would be favored over, but at least more competitive than Ohio and Grambling State. The most entertaining part about Ohio State and Grambling State is going to be the battle of the bands at halftime. What are we doing? So, no, I'm not, it is what it is. I'm very curious to see as time goes on, the scheduling philosophies that are going to change, and we're already technically seeing it. Ohio State and Texas will play. Will the return game happen in Texas? Will Ohio State finish this contract with Texas and get rid of the Alabama and the Georgia series? I would. Like I said, I want to see those matchups, but to me, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to go that route. But nonetheless. All right. We do have an update on this Trey Hendrickson situation, and apparently it's a lot worse than originally thought. Okay. And that's what's going to be interesting about following this entire thing. All right. So a little bit ago, Dan Schultz is the one Jordan Schultz, who was the one that technically broke the news about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins' contract being finalized and all that fun stuff. Jordan Schultz tweeted this regarding the situation and where they stand with Trey Hendrickson. Now, keep in mind, yesterday when Duke Tobin and Mike Brown addressed the media regarding this, it sounded like they were close to getting something resolved. And this is why everyone earlier that's bashing Shamar Stewart and automatically taking Mike Brown's side, these guys are liars. Mike Brown's a liar, and so is Duke Tobin. They lied to you to make you feel like they're in control of everything, and then guess what? All of a sudden, when the real stuff comes out, no one counters them. No one calls them out. Just like last year, we're going to do everything we can in our power to get this deal done with Jamar Chase. And then they hid, Duke Tobin hid, Mike Brown hid, and then no one got called out for the BS that they lied to you because they went a whole year without getting anything done. Same thing's happening now. Yesterday, they made everybody feel like, oh man, it's been an unfortunate thing. We value Trey Hendrickson. We value him. And we're close to getting a deal done. They made it sound like it's close. It was positive vibes galore yesterday about the Trey Hendrickson situation. Well, Jordan Schultz tweets out earlier today, multiple sources described the last round of talks between Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals as very contentious, and that it's been a very difficult negotiation all offseason long. Hendrickson has publicly said he won't play this season without a new deal, and the team is aware. Talks hit a major impasse on yesterday, and I'm told it's unknown when they'll resume. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike Brown. I'm sorry, Duke Tobin. I thought everything was hunky-dory. I thought everything was fine. I thought we were close to smoothing this out. So now you're not going to have your first-round draft pick pass rusher and then the leading NFL sack guy in Trey Hendrickson. You're going to be without him too? They lie. That's why when fans were really getting mad at me saying, they're not taking Shamar Stewart's side, they're taking this front office does not operate in good faith, ever. They never have, and they never will, and they're not doing it now. They didn't operate in good faith with Jamar Chase. They did not, they went to Jamar Chase and said, hey, let's get a deal done. Okay, let's get a deal done. Psych. T. Higgins, they wanted nothing to do with them, wanted nothing to do with them. Jamar Chase had to blackmail them into getting a deal done, and they reluctantly got a deal done. Trey Hendrickson, technically, this is on Trey Hendrickson to a certain extent because, for one, you agreed to the original contract. They gave you a contract extension 2 years ago, and you agreed to that restructured contract to play at the number you're going to play at this year. And now you're mad because you outperformed that number, and you're seeing everyone else get fat and happy financially, and you're mad at yourself for signing that deal, but you're going to blame the Browns. Now, that's where I was on the Mike Brown side when it came to that. But at the same time, Mike Brown coming out yesterday and trying to convince us that everything's fine, when in reality it's not. That's why I never trust him. I don't trust Duke Tobin. They're used car salesmen. They are sleazy. They kept trying to tell you everything was fine with Jamar Chase. And you could say, well, it was. They ended up getting it done, but it wasn't fine in the midst of it. That's why your quarterback threw a crybaby temper tantrum the entire Super Bowl week. if things really were hunky-dory and fine behind the scenes when it came to all this, Joe Burrow would not have gone on Radio Row and had to beg and plead and kick and scream for his team to get a deal done. Simple as that. Simple as that. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. The question I'll throw out, we'll step away for a few. Bengals fans, which deal is more important? Which one needs to get done? Which one is more important? Shamar Stewart or Trey Hendrickson? If Duke Tobin calls you, the Bengals fan, and says, all right, we'll cave to one of these guys, which one do you want us to cave to? Shamar Stewart or Trey Hendrickson? Which one is it more vital to get into camp as camp's officially underway? We'll discuss when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.